If you have seen some of my Canopy Gardens videos, you might have seen the TreeTop Adventure part I have started. I've turned parts of this into blueprints, and in this video I want to teach you how to use it the best. We can save paths as blueprints, but with a few tricks I've tried to make it as easy as possible to put up the paths for this. I also made a few extra treetop designs which might fit better into the style or biome of your zoo. We'll look at those later. This specific design here is made to fit into my zoo, Canopy Gardens, so it's more detailed and quite heavy on pieces than the simpler designs mentioned before. It is designed to look like an artificial tree rather than a real one. So the base of the tree is fake, and then in the top a bush has been planted to look like the crown of the tree. The other designs are based around actual trees that also makes them less heavy on pieces and maybe a bit easier to fit in. This blueprint consists of the main tree, guest platform structure and a pillar for support. When you select my blueprint, you'll notice that it contains staff buildings up here. This might seem odd, but there's a good reason behind it. This is used to get the path on the right grid. Delete one of the buildings and then put your first piece of path in front of it, and now you can connect this path for a grid fitting inside of this circle. And then you can delete the last staff building afterwards. Why there's two to begin with will make sense in a moment. So getting the path to fit inside one of these structures is easy enough. It gets a little trickier when you want to place your second structure. Since we're placing these individually, getting them perfectly aligned might be a little tricky. You build your path out in a straight line till the point where you want to place your second tree. Now you must go and find the blueprint again. If you make sure to place the hide me part just below the surface, then you should be on an even level with the other tree. It might be a little annoying that this support pillar comes with it every time, but it is easy enough to just delete it. Make sure this one is mirrored 180 degrees to the first one you placed. Now you can see why we need two buildings to get better symmetry. Now move the building in front of the path and try to make the path appear as straight as possible. It might be a little annoying sometimes. Then place the blueprint. Now we can delete one of the staff buildings, and the best thing to do now is to delete this part of the path again. And then follow the grid of the building as before. Then you can connect it to the rest again. This way, even if you didn't end up getting it perfectly aligned, you most likely won't notice, since the circle matches perfectly inside of the structure again. And if you don't want to build straight paths, then you only really have to make sure you just cover the hide me part and make the path on the building's grid as before. Then you can connect them as you like. Angle snap for the path is maybe also a good idea to use here. When you have connected a path to a structure, then there are a few pieces you probably want to delete to make it fit better to the path, like some of the walls and some of the beams. So now you should be able to connect one platform to another, and it works the same way for the other blueprints I have made. For the Canopy Gardens set, which I have demonstrated here, I have also made this beam, which is rather easy to adjust the height of. This way, if you're building over an uneven terrain or just not follow the hide me sign, then you can still make it fit in. If you move the top part, then it will slide up and down the beam in the middle, making it somewhat adjustable. And you can of course also make the middle part longer if you find that useful. Let's look at the other blueprints I have made. For now I have made one using the baobab, the redwood and the kabak trees. They're a little lower than my Canopy Gardens versions, but I think that might make them easier to use. If this gets popular enough, I might consider making a more base game friendly version of it. Something I wish I had a clever solution for is getting the guests up and down from the platform, since it breaks the immersion a bit building a long ramp or spiral for a guest to get up there. But I don't really have a good blueprint to help you with this, sadly, but in a moment I'll show you how I did it in my own zoo when I present you for how I use these structures myself in Canopy Gardens. But first I'll present you for a few other blueprints which you might want to use together with the TreeTop-Walk. I got one blueprint for this big TreeTop Adventure sign, which is also part of Canopy Gardens. And then I got these platforms which I've been updating a bit after we got better brachiation. So far I've used these in the Siamang enclosure. But let us go into the park and look at how I used all of this, even though it's not a finished project at the moment. So maybe I'll improve some of it over time as I build along with it. So make sure to subscribe to the channel to see how we will continue all of this. Now, to the park. So here we are at my TreeTop Adventure, as it is at the moment. It's still a bit of a work in progress. But the main thing I want to show you here is how I put all the stuff together, and also how I got my guests up to the first platform. So here you can already see how I made my pillars in different sizes using the technique I showed. And you might also notice that not all my treetop structures will look the same, since I have adjusted them to use them with buildings and other stuff. So they look a little different from the blueprint I've made for you, but some of them are almost exactly the same. The one out here come pretty close to the blueprint. So instead of making one long ramp, I have kind of split up my upgoing sections so it doesn't look as extreme. So here's the first part. This might change later as I build something to the right of it. And then if we go around here, you'll have the rest of it, which I also made up around the tree. So I think this way it doesn't look too extreme with one long ramp or one spiral. But since I'm using the terrain here a lot, there's not really a good blueprint for this. But whenever I finish my TreeTop Adventure, then I might come up with another solution when I have to get my guests down again. So if I come up with something clever, then we can do another one of these videos. And I'll post all the blueprints in links down in the description. And there you'll also find a link to the Planet Zoo forum, where I'll make a thread for this TreeTop concept. Here you'll find a link to this tutorial, all the blueprints, and there I'll also post if I end up expanding on any of it or make any improvements. And should you have any suggestions or feedback to all of this, then feel free to write them below in the comments, or jump over to the forum thread I have started.